Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, or whatever time of day it is for you gentlemen and ladies out there in the world. 2007 was a year whereby the British government actually went around apologizing for slavery of Africans who were taken from West Africa especially to North and South America and the British Isles and parts of Europe. 2007 being 200 years after the abolition of slavery in the British Empire. Everybody, mostly people were contrite, celebrating it, if you could call it a celebration, but nonetheless people were seriously thinking about the ramifications of such a British act of 200 years ago. Now, it's interesting today that Muslims, for example, are very reticent in actually apologizing for the dastardly deeds in the African continent and in parts of Europe. That's right. Let me focus. It is most interesting, as I've been discovering in the last few years, that the Muslims, especially those Arab people, have been engaged in slavery ever since Muhammad was around, over almost 2,000 years ago now. However, most of the debate is centered a bit between Africans and European slavery, right? Especially between black Americans who are now demanding reparations, and West African chiefs demanding the same thing. But people have forgotten that there was slavery from East Africa to Arabia and Asia, right? And that these were actually done by Muslims. Now the numbers are quite interesting. Roughly 10 million, maximum 20 million, probably 10 million Africans were shipped from West African ports towards North and South American Britain, right? And relatively for a short period of 350 years, from 1600 onwards. However, we do find descendants of those people, because one of them is actually trying to become the President of the United States of America today in 2008, Mr. Barack Obama. And after 40 years after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on April the 4th, right, in Memphis, Tennessee, Dr. Martin Luther's dream of I Have a Dream has become a reality for many of those descendants of those African slaves in the United States. They're quite empowered in economics and political figures, military officials, etc. Although quite a large chunk are also still at the bottom of the pile. However, it is interesting, that there are people there from African descent. What has happened to those in the Asian parts who were shipped from East Africa, from Zanzibar, Lima, ports on the East African coast, what you now call today Tanzania? Think about it. The reason why you don't find them is because the men were castrated. In fact, the mortality rate was extremely high in the slave routes, shipping from West Africa across the Sahara to Arabia, and also from East Africa to Asia and also Arabia, Saudi Arabia in particular, right? So the only people that were left behind from Africa were slaves, actually children and women, and those women used as sex slaves. Now, this debate is ongoing because we're demanding that the Arabs make a recognition, first of all, of the terrible things they've done. And I've calculated that over 100 million African people were shipped as slaves from East Africa to Arabia, as compared to less than 10 million from West Africa to the Western European states. However, as a Christian, I'm also intrigued to find that the Arabs have been busy shipping white people as slaves also. Now that may come as a surprise. This is a map. This is a map of Ireland. And in parts of Great Britain, places like Cornwall and Devon, for example, there were slave raids conducted by the Arabs to come from North Africa. Okay? In fact, I'll be making another video to get to more details about this. But the Muslims have got to wake up. Why is it, for example, in 1643, the British government actually told the parish churches in the United Kingdom to start collecting money in churches for slaves? These are white people sent as slaves, actually raided by the Arabs in North Africa, Tripoli, Morocco, Mauritania, etc. Devon, Cornwall, the same phenomena, right? Ireland, the same phenomena. Even Iceland actually had slave raiders from North African coast. So the question is, if you're talking about reparations, I'd like to ask, what about the 1 to 2 million white people that were sent as slaves from Europe to North Africa, controlled by the Arab Muslims? Let's think about that. From the halls of Montezuma to Tripoli is a famous American Marine song. And the reason why that is so is because, as I close, because the American Marines had to fight to liberate those American slaves, white people, and also Christians in North Africa, right? Who were controlled and taken over by the Arab Muslims. And that was the first act of and the American government did after winning the independence war against Britain. Because the Americans were not fighting against Muslims, but the Muslims were. And they admit this, that they were taking slaves from apart places, Iceland, Devon, Cornwall, and also Ireland. Think about that. Next time you talk to a Muslim, say, oh yeah, 20th century, bam, you defeat us by bombing the Twin Towers, but you've been doing this for centuries. We'll like some answers, please. God bless. Bye.